These are the symptoms and signs that you need to watch out for if you think you're developing insulin resistance. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what they are and how they develop, as well as what you can do about them. My name is Rob. I'm the founder of Healthy You, where we help executives, entrepreneurs, high-end professionals reverse their insulin resistance so they can lose fat, regain their energy, and overall improve their quality of life. And in this video, we're going to get into exactly what are the common symptoms and signs of insulin resistance so you can navigate how far you are along in developing this condition, as well as start taking action to combat and reverse your insulin resistance. Let's get right into it. So what is insulin resistance and why should you care? So insulin resistance is when your cells don't respond to the hormone insulin as they should. And what is insulin? Insulin is a hormone that helps regulate your blood glucose levels. So when you eat something, your body's going to break down that food into blood glucose and release that into the bloodstream. And it's insulin's job to help bring that blood sugar back down by taking it out of the blood and sending it to different cells in your body for energy. Now, your body can only send so much glucose to your cells at once because, one, your cells will already have some glycogen, as well as they can only take in so much glycogen, and your body can only send so much glycogen to your cells at once. So if you have excess glucose in the blood, what does your body do? It stores that glucose as fat. And this is how insulin resistance starts to develop as you gain more and more fat and as your blood glucose levels get higher and higher. So as you can see here, this definition is from the National Institute of Health. Insulin resistance is when your cells in your muscles, fat, and liver do not respond well to insulin and can easily take up glucose from the blood. So when they can't easily take up glucose from the blood, what does that mean? Your blood glucose levels stay high and gradually get higher. As a result, the pancreas makes more and more insulin to help glucose enter your cells. So what does that mean? Your blood glucose gets higher and higher over time, and so do your insulin levels, because your cells cannot take in glucose at the rate that they should. And this is how you start to develop insulin resistance and metabolic disease and dysfunction. So you can see on this chart, you eat food and your body will break this down to blood glucose, which will enter your bloodstream. And your body will make insulin in order to bring that blood glucose down and send it to other areas of the body. Over time, as you eat more and more excess calories in sugar, carbs, and saturated fat, your cells will become resistant to insulin because your glucose levels are so high and your insulin levels are so high. And your body will begin to store that sugar as fat. And this is what's going to leave you feeling tired, hungry, and crave more food. And you'll eat more food and the cycle will continue. The reason why this is such a big issue is because it can lead to so many other diseases. Type 2 diabetes, which many of you know or may have, but also heart disease, fatty liver, cancer, Alzheimer's, neuropathy, kidney disease, chronic inflammation. There's blindness, numbness in your hands and feet. We'll get into more of those later, but these are a lot of the diseases that insulin resistance leads to. And that's why you need to be cognizant of this if you are developing it and paying attention to the signs. Because if you don't, the costs are very high. The consequences are quite significant. It's not like this stuff happens overnight. It does happen slowly, but once you're there, it's very, 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 very difficult to get back to where you were. On top of that, you're going to be dealing with many, many life-threatening chronic illness issues. So this is something you want to get on top of as soon as you can. Another reason why you want to get on top of this is simply to not endure a poor quality of life. When you have metabolic disease and chronic illness, you're constantly in and out of the doctor's office, in and out of the hospital, constantly dealing with insurance companies and medical facilities. You're likely spending lots of money on medication, health insurance, medication bills, medical bills. This is going to be a burden emotionally and financially on you and likely your loved ones. So it's not just the people around you who are going to suffer, it's the people that you love. Sorry, not just you who are going to suffer, it's the people around you who are going to suffer as well. Because the people around you, the people who love you, are going to be the ones taking care of you. And they're going to be the ones taking you back and forth from the hospital to the doctor. They're going to be helping you with your medication. And they're going to gradually watch you get worse. And that's going to be quite traumatizing for them. I know, because I've worked with many clients where that's been the case. They saw their parents go through it, and that was traumatizing, and they want to avoid that pain. And I assume many of you want to avoid that pain as well. But also think about the people around you and putting them through that situation. You wouldn't want that for yourself or for the people around you. And that also goes back to not only a poor quality of life, but a shorter life. All the diseases I mentioned before will take years from your life. And you will not have the longevity that you desire, because essentially those diseases will kill you much earlier in life than if you were healthy. Not to mention just chronic self-depression and low self-worth for the situation that you're in, because deep down you know that you're responsible for your current state and you're not doing anything about it. So that's why knowing these symptoms are very important, because once you know the symptoms and you see them start to develop, you can do something about it ASAP. 1, everybody leading a stressful lifestyle. What does that mean? Working long hours. When you're working, you're likely sitting down in front of a computer all day typing, and you're not moving a lot. And because you're constantly balancing your career, your work obligations, and your family, you're on the go all the time. And likely you're sacrificing your sleep quality, sleep quantity, because you're prioritizing your career and your family at the expense of your health. You're working long hours, you're sitting down all day, and because you're constantly on the move, you're eating on the move, meaning you're eating fast food, you're eating snacks, sugary energy drinks, you're just taking stuff to just not feel hungry all day, and you're not getting adequate amounts of sleep on top of that. You're prioritizing your career and your family at the expense of your long-term health. Because you're not prioritizing your long-term health, you're going to develop these chronic diseases over time. And the reason why ignoring your health is such a huge issue is because of the standard Western diet. Because you're just eating on the go, most of those foods are going to come from calorie-dense, sugar, carb-filled foods, like your burgers, pizza, chips, soda, all those snacks. Those are going to be processed foods, and those are just foods stripped of their micronutrients and antioxidants. They're designed to last and be preserved longer and taste better, but that usually comes at the expense of any nutritional value, and they're high in calories. Because you're working all the time, you indulge in the convenience of fast food and snacks, and that's where the standard Western diet starts to get you, and you start to gain weight over time and develop insulin resistance. So what are actually the symptoms of this if you see them developing? There's going to be physical and tangible, and mental and intangible. So what are the physical and tangible things that you can actually measure? Weight gain, high LDL or bad cholesterol, triglycerides, low HDL, basically your whole lipid profile. Do you have hypertension, which is high blood pressure, elevated liver enzymes? How high is your fasting blood sugar? If it's over 100, that's very high. That likely shows some severe insulin resistance, probably even pre or type 2 diabetes. For women, PCOS. For men, low testosterone, and especially elevated insulin levels. These are all things that, when combined together, paint a picture of somebody who's insulin resistant. And there's the mental side effects as well, like chronic fatigue, brain fog, poor memory, irritable mood and depression, constant hunger and sugar and carb cravings, bloating, urination, blurry vision, skin pigmentations and tags. These are all of the intangible things that are more tough to measure, but you know if you have them. So how can you test for this? And that's a great question. Most of the tangible symptoms that I described in the previous slide can be tested on a simple metabolic panel. Maybe you have to test your A1C, your lipids, and insulin in a separate one, but you can usually get a lot of these ordered by your doctor, especially if you've experienced symptoms of insulin resistance in the past or have had pre or type 2 diabetes. Your doctor can likely order you all these labs, and your healthcare can cover at least 80% of the costs. But the crucial tests I want you to dial in on are your hemoglobin A1C, your fasting insulin, your lipids, and your whole metabolic panel. And the reason I say it in that particular order is because your A1C is what's clinically used to diagnose if you have pre or type 2 diabetes. Your fasting insulin is one where a lot of doctors won't check, but it is a great indication of how much insulin your body is producing to keep your sugar levels where it's at. Your lipids are also a great indicator of inflammation and also excess calories eaten. And your metabolic panel gives you everything in between, from liver enzymes to fasted glucose to EGFR, kidney health markers. They're very, very helpful. And I suggest that when you get blood work done, you test for these things to see where your metabolic picture is. Now, if you're like me and you don't want to deal with the doctor at all, you can just go to some third-party websites like Walk-In Lab, Discounted Lab, and you can actually pay for, out of pocket, the exact medical test that you want, pay for them, and you'll get a doctor's note in turn from the Walk-In Lab or Discounted Labs. And this is pretty much how I've gotten most of my blood work done for probably the last 5 years. And it's very effective because you can straight bypass the doctor, bypass the BS reasoning and waiting for them to write you a referral. Here you can just print out the lab order and you can be in the lab the next day or even later that day. And obviously you want to print your labs out and go to your nearest LabCorp, Quest Labs, and get your blood drawn. And then you'll have the results sent to you after a few days or a week, however long it takes them to get the test results back. But if you live in any one of these states, this may not be an option for you. So if you live in New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, this is probably not a viable option for you, right? If you just use LabCorp, it's a lot of what I explained before, but you also can't. If you live in Massachusetts or Maryland, it's a no-go. Quest has more options. It's the states I mentioned earlier as well as Arizona. And in my experience, the tests on Quest Labs are also cheaper, which is why I tend to use them the majority of the time. So in order to calculate how severe your insulin resistance is, I usually refer to the HOMA index. And the HOMA insulin resistance index is to give you a definitive answer into how insulin resistant you are. So it's a simple equation. It's your fasting insulin times your fasted glucose divided by 22.5. So your healthy range is, you want it to be around 1, but anywhere from 0.5 to 0.14 is a very healthy range. If you are less than 1, like between 0.5 and 0.9, that's pretty optimal. That means you have a very, very good amount of insulin sensitivity, which is optimal. Now, if you're above a 1.9, this means early development of insulin resistance. If you're at a 2.9, that represents significant insulin resistance. So if you're in the 3s or higher, know that you need to take action now. So in order to do something about this, you need to get the tests, get a proper diagnosis, look at the actual numbers, and get an idea of where your metabolic health is. Because once you do that, you can input a plan that'll help change your lifestyle and allow you to start seeing results in reversing your conditions. Here's some things you can do right now that will help you start crushing insulin resistance. Now, there's no one size fits all here, and this will obviously all need to be adapted to your own specific situation and your lifestyle. But I just want to stress this. You do not need to have all the symptoms that I mentioned to have developing insulin resistance. Hence why if you are developing some of these symptoms, it's important for you to take action. Do not wait for things to get worse for you to do something. So here are some things you can do right now. And that's number one, start eating in caloric deficit. Start tracking your calories, eating in the caloric deficit, and bringing your weight down. Okay? You want 90% of those calories to come in the form of protein and fibrous carbs from ideally vegetables, some legumes, and other carbs like some fruit, other legumes like beans, chickpeas, other peas. Like those are fantastic. Black beans, pinto beans, those are great. But you want most of your food to come from protein like chicken and turkey and vegetables. And then you want large servings of those foods. And then you want small servings of additional carbs from legumes, some fruit. And if you get most of your calories from those foods and you're eating a caloric deficit, that right there will help reverse your insulin resistance in a matter of months. Also, if you stop drinking calories and minimize the snacking, so only drinking water, tea, black coffee, zero sugar energy drinks, and you minimize the snacking, that puts you even further along. On top of that, if you fast for 12 to 14 hours a day, that also helps bring your glucose levels down and start burning more fat, along with walking after your meals and sleeping more. If you were to stick to this and gradually perfect it over the course of years, you're going to nuke your insulin resistance. All right, I hope that was helpful to you guys. Those are the symptoms of insulin resistance, and it's very important that if you start developing this, that you take action. Remember, you don't need to have all these symptoms to be developing insulin resistance. Hence why it's important for you to get tested with a metabolic panel, lipids, A1C, your fasted insulin levels, so you can get those numbers back and see a full picture of where you're at via the blood work. And then from there, making a proper lifestyle plan with your eating, your sleep, your movement habits in order to reverse your insulin resistance and bring your weight down. This in itself, if you were to stick to just doing that for 8 to 12 months, I guarantee you'll be in a much better place. Ideally, you're making this change for the rest of your life. But anyway, I hope this video helps you guys. Please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X. Where else am I? I'm on all the platforms. But yeah, follow me over there. If this video is helpful to you, please smash the like button, leave a comment, or just like the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hope this helps you guys. Please follow me for more.